At my wedding, my sister showed up wearing white. Not cream. Not ivory. Not off-white. White. The exact same color as my wedding dress. And somehow, that wasn't even the worst part. Because 30 minutes later, she walked up to the DJ, grabbed the microphone, and demanded the first dance. My name is Emily Carter, and what happened after that is something my family still refuses to talk about. 4 years. My sister Olivia had to be the center of everything. Birthdays, graduations, family vacations, even funerals somehow became about her feelings. My parents always called her spirited. I called it something else, but saying that out loud never ended well. So I stopped trying. When Ryan proposed to me, I promised myself one thing. No drama. No arguments. No family politics. Just one perfect day. For once. I wanted a memory that belonged to me. Only me. The wedding venue overlooked a quiet lake. Fresh flowers lined the aisle. Soft music floated through the air. Everything looked exactly the way we had planned. Guests smiled. Photographers moved quietly. Ryan squeezed my hand. "You okay?" he whispered. I smiled. "I am now." And I meant it. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. Then, a black luxury SUV pulled into the parking lot. My mother smiled immediately. "Oh good," she said. "Olivia finally made it." I turned, and my stomach dropped. Olivia stepped out, wearing a long white designer gown. Elegant. Expensive. Bridal. People noticed instantly. Conversations stopped. Several guests looked at me, then back at her. Even the wedding coordinator looked confused. One bridesmaid quietly whispered, "Is that intentional?" I already knew the answer. With Olivia, everything was intentional. She walked toward us confidently. Huge smile. Like she was arriving at her own celebration. "Oh my gosh," she laughed. "Everyone looks amazing." Nobody answered. She hugged my mother first. Then my father. Neither of them said a word about the dress. Not one. Finally, she looked at me. "What?" she asked innocently. "It's just a dress." I stared at her. "You wore white." She shrugged. "It looked good on me." Silence. Heavy silence. Ryan stepped slightly closer to me. Not to speak. Just to remind me. I wasn't standing there alone. My maid of honor leaned over. "Want me to say something?" I shook my head. No. Because I already knew how this would go. If anyone confronted Olivia, my parents would defend her. They always did. The ceremony began. I tried to focus. Ryan's smile. The vows. The lake behind us. The future ahead. Not Olivia. Not today. For nearly an hour. It worked. I almost forgot she was there. Then came the reception. People laughed. Music played. Dinner was served. Friends shared stories. Everything slowly became normal again. Until I noticed Olivia whispering to the DJ. He looked confused. She smiled confidently. Then, he handed her the microphone. My heart sank. She tapped it twice. "Can I have everyone's attention?" The room became quiet. She stood in the middle of the dance floor, wearing white, holding a microphone, while I sat beside my husband. "I just think," she began, "before Emily has her first dance, our family deserves a special moment." I frowned. "What is she doing?" Ryan whispered. "I don't know." Olivia smiled even wider. "I think I should have the first dance tonight." Complete silence. Someone actually dropped a fork. My father looked uncomfortable. My mother forced a smile. Neither of them stopped her. Not one word. Olivia kept talking. "I've always been the one holding this family together." She laughed softly. "So I think I deserve this." Several guests exchanged confused looks. My best friend covered her mouth. The DJ stood frozen, waiting. unsure what to do. I looked at my parents. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They were letting it happen. Again. Just like always. Ryan leaned toward me. You don't have to put up with this. I took one slow breath. Then another. Years of staying quiet. Years of letting things go. Years of choosing peace over respect. All of it ended right there. I stood up slowly. Walked across the dance floor. Straight toward Olivia. She smiled confidently. Certain I was about to give in. Instead, I reached for the microphone. She hesitated. What are you doing? She whispered. I looked directly into her eyes. Then turned toward every guest in the room. Because for the first time, I wasn't going to stay silent. And what I was about to say was going to change this wedding. And our family. Forever. The room was completely silent. Every guest was watching. Some looked at Olivia. Others looked at me. Waiting. I held the microphone gently. Not shaking. Not angry. Just ready. Olivia folded her arms. Well, she asked. Say something. I smiled politely. Then looked around the room. First, I said, thank you all for being here today. A few guests nodded. I've dreamed about this day for a very long time. I glanced at Ryan. And marrying this man is the happiest moment of my life. Ryan smiled softly. Then I looked back at Olivia. But before we continue, I paused. I think everyone deserves to understand why my sister believes tonight should be about her. Her smile disappeared. What are you doing? She whispered. I continued anyway. When we were children, every birthday somehow became her birthday too. Quiet murmurs spread across the room. When I graduated college, she interrupted dinner to announce she was moving in with her boyfriend. Several relatives exchanged uncomfortable looks. When Ryan proposed to me, I looked at Olivia. She asked why he didn't help buy her a new car instead. Someone near the back quietly gasped. I stayed silent every single time. I smiled sadly. Not because she was right, but because I wanted peace. Another pause. But today isn't about keeping peace. It's about respecting boundaries. I handed the microphone back toward the DJ. My sister deserves happiness. I looked directly at Olivia. But not at the cost of someone else's. Complete silence. For the first time all evening. No one defended her. My father looked down at the floor. My mother opened her mouth. Then quietly closed it again. Ryan reached for my hand. I squeezed it gently. The DJ finally spoke. So, he asked carefully, should we continue with the bride and groom's first dance? I smiled. Yes. The guests began clapping. Slowly at first. Then louder. One table stood. Then another. Within seconds. The entire room was applauding. Not because of the drama, but because someone had finally said what everyone had been thinking for years. Olivia looked around the room, waiting for someone to support her. No one did. Her confidence disappeared. Without another word, she quietly walked toward the exit. My mother started to follow her. Then stopped. Looked back at me. For the first time. She stayed where she was. The DJ restarted the music. Ryan smiled. Ready, he whispered. I nodded. More certain than ever. More than ever, I replied. As we stepped onto the dance floor together, I realized something. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't embarrassing someone. It's refusing to let them steal another moment of your life. The music started again. Ryan placed one hand around my waist. I rested my head against his shoulder. For the first time that day, I wasn't thinking about Olivia. I was thinking about us. Our future. Our beginning. The room slowly relaxed. Guests smiled again. Laughter returned. The wedding finally felt like our wedding. A few minutes later, my aunt quietly walked over. She squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, she whispered. You didn't humiliate her. You simply told the truth. I smiled. Because that was exactly what I wanted. Not revenge. Just honesty. As dinner continued, several relatives came over one by one. Some apologized for never speaking up. Others admitted they had noticed Olivia's behavior for years. They just didn't want conflict. I understood. I'd been doing the same thing my entire life. Then my father approached. He looked older somehow. Tired. "We should have stopped this years ago," he said quietly. I looked at him. "You should have," I replied. He lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry. It wasn't a perfect apology. It didn't erase years of favoritism. But it was real." A few moments later, my mother returned alone. "Olivia went home," she said softly. "No excuses. No blaming me. Just the truth." I nodded. "I hope she's okay," I replied. And I meant it. Because despite everything, she was still my sister. I didn't want her to suffer. I just refused to let her control my life anymore. The rest of the evening was peaceful. Ryan and I laughed with our friends. We danced until our feet hurt. We cut the cake. Took family photos. Watched the sunset over the lake. And for the first time in years, I felt completely free. Not because Olivia had left, but because I had finally stopped living in the shadow of her behavior. As Ryan and I drove away that night, he reached for my hand. "You know," he said with a smile, "today wasn't remembered because of the drama." I looked at him. "Then why?" He smiled. "Because the bride finally chose herself." I looked back at the glowing lights of the venue one last time, then turned forward. Ready for a future where peace didn't require silence, where love didn't require sacrifice, and where my voice would never again be something I apologized for using. Glowing Star Moral: the strongest way to protect your happiness isn't by fighting for attention, it's by refusing to let anyone steal the moments that belong to you.